transparency is now going on, and some of them are participating in the contact group. So I hope you will understand this situation. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So now 11:45, so we have to start the meeting. So, distinguished colleagues, so I'm SBI Vice Chair, the Ambassador from Korea. I'd like to welcome all of you to the second half of the Facilitative Sharing of Views. Today, we will resume the session that started on November 5th. Yesterday, we had a very informative session with the four parties, presenting and actively exchanging views with the parties. First, let me go through a few formalities. We kindly request that delegates wear masks at all times during meetings unless they take the floor to intervene. Press the white button to request the floor and wait for your number to be called. Then you can take the floor. The FSV session will be broadcasted live and the recording will be made available on the respective parties' FSV webpage after the session. Moreover, parties will be able to participate remotely through the COP26 platform. To ensure the effective time management of this session and taking into account the limited time available, parties under FSV have prepared pre-recorded presentations that have been posted in the FSV website prior to this session. I hope you have been able to view these presentations before this session. Today, each party will be asked to deliver a short statement of maximum 3 minutes, followed by a question and answer session. I will take a block of questions from several parties at once and then ask the party under FSV to respond to these questions before moving on to the next round of questions. I will give the floor to parties undergoing the FSV as outlined in the schedule of the FSV and on the Climate Change Conference web pages. Now, I'd like to invite the Cambodia to make a short statement. It will be delivered by Mr. Dr. Hak Mao, Director of the Department of Climate Change, General Secretariat of National Council for Sustainable Development. Dr. Mao, you have the floor. 35, Cambodia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Excellency Chair. Good morning, colleagues. It is our opportunity on behalf of the delegate of Cambodia to deliver a short statement in this event. First, I would like to emphasize that Cambodia has faced increasing threat from climate change, with increasing loss of human lives and significant damage to economic development, natural resource, and environment. The combined impact of climate change and COVID-19 pandemics have severe consequences to the livelihood of the most vulnerable citizens. Over the past 10 years, the Royal Government of Cambodia has significantly increased the national budget allocation for climate change-related activities. The budget is doubled in the last 5 years, and in 2019, it accounts around 2% of the GDP. Besides, a joint study showed that climate change may reduce the country's annual average GDP growth around 10% in 2050. Cambodia has supported global efforts against climate change by being a party to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1996, Kyoto Protocol in 2002, and Paris Climate Agreement in 2017. Cambodia developed a comprehensive national climate change strategic plan 10 years from 2014 to 2023, aiming to develop country toward green, low carbon, climate resilient, equitable, sustainable, and knowledge-based societies. Besides, Cambodia has made remarkable progress in terms of climate change policy, particularly mainstreaming climate change into national policy strategies and also mainstreaming to subnational planning and budgeting. Besides that, the country submitted the first biennial update report in 2020 with the total emission around 160 gigagram. And the major contributor is followed by agriculture. Under this report, we identify some potential mitigation action like reduce emission from deforestation and forest degradation, and also implement some clean development mechanism, joint credit mechanism, and others voluntary carbon market. Besides that, at the end of 2020, Cambodia also submit updated NDC showing the emission reduction around 42%. In order to implement the activity indicated under update NDC, we require around $7 billion. And right now, the country are developing long-term strategy for carbon neutrality, and we expect that we will submit by the end of the year. As a member of UNFCCC, Cambodia adhere to the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. We are very conscious of the urgency of climate action and concerned that commitments announced to date are not sufficient to meet the objective of Paris Agreement. We call for the developed country to commit to allocating $100 million per year, per year to climate finance to poor and developing nations. And this commitment now needs to be turned into concrete program on ground. Low carbon technology transfer and capacity building and also institutional enhancement are very important for a country like Cambodia. With the increasing requirement of the reporting preparation under both UNFCCC and also Paris Climate Agreement, I would like to end my statement and thank you, Excellency Chair and colleagues.
Thank you, Cambodia. Now I'd like to open the floor for questions from parties. I will collect a number of questions from parties before inviting the delegate from Cambodia to respond. Now the floor is open. Now I can see the number 57, Switzerland. You have the floor.
Switzerland would like to commend Cambodia for submitting its first biennial update report and actively participating in this facilitative sharing of views. According to Cambodia's first biennial update report, a significant contribution to emission reduction could be achieved by increasing forest cover to 60% of total land through the implementation of forest programs. This reduction is conditional on the country receiving the necessary international support. In this regard, we have three questions. 1. In Cambodia, what percentage of land is presently covered by forest? 2. Could you describe the practical approach proposed for the increasing forest cover to 60% of total land? And 3rd, has Cambodia also examined possible adverse socio-economic impacts of implementing such a program? Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. And now number 10, EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and congratulations to Cambodia for its first BUR. We would also like to thank you for the pre-recorded presentation and for your remarks today. We have one question. In your first BUR, you reported that the climate change action plans were prepared for 14 ministries and institutions, each with their own priority mitigation actions. What are some of the advantages, but also some of the disadvantages or challenges implementing such specific plans in the various institutions? Thank you.
Thank you. And now number 41, the UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Cambodia, for the presentation and opening statement. We were interested to read that one of the objectives of the National REDD+ strategy is to strengthen and scale up community-based forest management to reduce emissions. Please can you tell us more about this and how you plan to involve local communities in climate mitigation policies? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UK. And now number 13, the Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would also like to congratulate colleagues from Cambodia for the submission of their first biennial update report. And the question, according to the BUR, emissions from the forest and other land use sector increased significantly from 2010 onwards when compared to figures reported for previous years. The percentage of emissions from forest and land use in total emissions has also increased. Could you please provide some background on the causes for this increase in emissions in the FOLU sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. And 53, USA, you have the floor.
Hello. Congratulations, Cambodia. Thank you very much for your presentation. We've seen that you're moving to the use of the IPCC 2006 guidelines. What do you feel have been the major benefits and the lessons learned from this change? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, the United States. And we have some more questions. So at this moment, can I ask Cambodia to respond to these questions? It's the first round of the question. Number 25, Cambodia.
Thank you very much, Excellency Chair, and thank you, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, for posing a question to us. First, I would like to answer the question to Switzerland related to forest cover in the countries. Right now, we have around 50% of the total land area in terms of forest. And the approach to increase the forest land area, as we have indicate in our REDD Plus strategies, we have the target in order to increase our forest in the country through promoting forest plantation and also conservation of our natural and also our existing forest land area. And besides that, we also encourage the commercial plantation. So this is the approach that we have been done. Besides that, we are strengthening the implementation of our existing law, policies, strategies, and so on. And can you repeat the third question, the challenge I could not fully capture?
'57, yeah, Switzerland.
Okay, yeah, okay. Has Cambodia also examined possible adverse socio-economic impacts of implementing such a program? Would you have problem with your people when you implement such a huge program to increase the forest area?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. As we may know, our people still, most of our people in the remote areas still poor, and the basic need they come from forest. And on this, there are still challenge for us to increase the target. However, we try to mobilize resources in order to implement livelihood-related improvement projects to provide alternative livelihood option to the local people, and we also try to increase the ecotourism to change the forest-reliant person to provide a service to in the area of ecotourism. And on this, we get very good lesson learned that we can change our people behavior from cutting the forest to provide service sectors, and also they can increase some income as well. And also we see that the trend that of course right now, because of awareness raising and the capacity building program, our people they also get understanding and they try to change their natures. But of course the challenge remain exists, and there are many things still need to do in order to address this kind of challenge. For the question on pro and con of implementation of sectoral strategies with the lime industry, Thank you for these questions once again. I think it is very important for the context of Cambodia. You know, after we develop our 10-year strategy, 2014 to 2023, of course, we try to develop sectoral climate change strategy with 14 lime industry. Of course, we have more than the lime industry, but the 14 lime industry is the main relevant ministry related to climate change. And having developed these strategies, of course, the implementation of climate change is more strengthened, and the awareness raising and also increased. Especially, you know, it's very helpful for our country to develop any policy or strategy since they have awareness, and since they get knowledge in the area of climate change. It also give opportunity for us when we collect any data or information in order to develop our information. Besides that, you know, right now we try to mainstream climate change into their existing policy and strategy so that they can raise the budget plan to the national budget. I think on this, you know, we can ensure the sustainability of the implementation of climate change in the countries. And of course, we get very interest from the lime industry. This is because I would say that the increasing support from our development partner to implement climate change related activities. For example, in Cambodia, we have Cambodia Climate Change Alliance with the support from EU, UNDPs, and Sweden. You know, this program right now is 3 phases. Each phase we have for 5 years. And with this support, you know, we can have opportunity to engage with the lime industry and key stakeholders. So it means that the lime industry and also relevant stakeholders have opportunity to get both benefit from the program, and also they have opportunity to strengthen their capacity in order to address the climate change. I would like to continue to the question of RED by England for RED Plus and the relation with the local community. I think it is very similar to what I respond to Switzerland. As you may know that RED Plus is very important, but of course we need to consider the livelihood of the people. Why the forest encroached? It is because the people remain poor. If the people rich, I think no one want to risk their life to cut the forest. Going to forest is very risky. It's not like the country that they enjoy the life in nature. But in our country, for example, you know, mine it remain, and you know, it's very risky sometimes when you go there, and also a lot of poisonous animal over there. So I think because of life, the people try to find the option, you know, to survive. But with the country commitment and also with the support from our international communities, we provide alternative livelihood based on the possible and also based on our capacity. And on this, we do need to get more support in order to implement this related activity and to improve our local livelihood. You know, the government try to change, as I said right now, we try to create ecotourism, and this is a good opportunity that the local people, they can get the benefit from this service, and also they can sell their local products. Besides that, you know, of course, as I said, we have the commitment to implement REDs, but it's subject to the, it's under condition. We have ambitious target, you know, to implement RED activities, and we have a comprehensive document on RED Plus investment project. And having implement this project, it very benefit to Cambodia. But you know, we still do need the resource, you know, in order to implement this. The resource, I mean, both technical and financial resource to implement it. Then I would like to move to a question of Germany. The reason to decrease the emission from deforestation from Fulu, right? If I get your point well, can you repeat a bit on this?
Number 13, Germany. Can you repeat your question again?
Yes, that's correct. From the forestry and other land use sector, there's an increase in the emissions you reported from 2010 onwards, I believe, and it's quite significant, fivefold or nearly fivefold. So we just wanted to ask if you could briefly explain the reasons for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. Yeah, personally, we observed the increased trend. This is because of our policy change after 2008. During that time, we promote the development of economic land concession. That's why it's slightly impact to our forest land area. Besides that, there are some methodologies and also the data collection improvement in the countries. That's why some missing information from the previous inventories make our recent investment more, I don't say that more transparent, but more quality acceptable. And we can see that all the sector also increased, like from energy sector also increased, but if we compare to other sector like forest and Fulu, it very increased. And when we look at the trend, it's a bit strange, especially from 2010 onward. So the reason, as I said, with our policy change, that's why it a bit impact to this. However, the country try to implement our RED project, as I would say, and we also implement and restore our forest outside the RED area as well. We expect that we will get a lot of benefit from the implementation of this project. And when you look at the recent document, especially under the updated NDC, and also right now we are developing the assessment under the long-term strategy for carbon neutrality, you can see the different trends. And I would say that having seen the challenge faced, under the BUR, the government has issued a declaration to be zero emission by 2040. So I think this is an ambitious target of the government. And right now we try to conduct different assessment and try to explore different methodology in order to implement our set declaration. So I think it is a way that we have tried in order to address this. For the question of the USA, yeah, of course, I think the country like Cambodia, the implementation of different methodology is not that easy. And we don't mean that we in-depth understand. For the first step, get to know the model is very important. Get to know the methodology is very important for our contact, with our limited human resource. But in order to apply any methodology, we have to understand in depth, and we understand we cannot fully identify what the pro and con between different tools, frankly speaking. But it's subject to the requirement and also subject to the update of the international community to apply different tools. Right now, our country, we try to explore the different tools in order to apply in our country. Most of the tools that we apply, we rely mainly on endogenous, meaning that we rely on default factors. That's why different time, different estimation, we can sometimes, it costs us make different results. So we see this challenge. But even we have tried, but we still need time. Capacity building, it is very time consuming, and we do need to learn more and more. Right now, we explore the possibility of different models, and we try to compare which one it should be simplified for, simple for Cambodia, meaning that with our limited data and information, whether this kind of tool can apply in our country or not. But based on experience learned show that still a lot of data required for our country, and the improvement of inventory is a bit time consuming and a bit complicated. But we try with our capacity to improve this investment and this inventories, and we hope that we still restrict to, as I said, we still restrict to the guideline as indicated by IPCC. When we conduct inventory, frankly speaking, we rely mainly on international consultants. And this is also another challenge for our country as well. Sometimes we don't understand what they assume in the models, what kind of variable they did, and also what kind of emission factor they put under the model. So this is another challenge that we have faced. So I would say that in order to implement climate justice, or in order to implement the transparency, it is very important for Cambodia to improve the capacity in the area of inventory, especially improve the domestic data. So I think this is what we do need more in the context of Cambodia. And then we have the question EU. I'm sorry, EU, can you repeat the question?
Number 10, still you have the question?
I have the floor. No, I think you already answered the European Union's question at the beginning on the ministries and how you interact with them. So.
Okay, I'm sorry, since a bit.
Okay, thank you, Cambodia, for the sincere responses to the questions from parties. And now we will have a second round of questions. I can see number 12, Luxembourg. You have the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Cambodia, and also congratulations for the first biennial update report that you have produced. And I also see with interest in your presentation, there are very interesting 3 slides on support received and needed, as well as constraints, gaps, and needs. And related to that, there's also in your report, you report on some institutional arrangements for financial support. And you say that under these arrangements, expenditure that are used for projects related to climate change are reported and reviewed. And for the review of this project, you mentioned that you use ex post data. We would like to know what are actually you see the positive thing of using ex post data, the advantage of using this ex post data, but also what are the difficulties, the challenge to assess and review the support received using ex post data. Thank you.
Thank you, Luxembourg. And now number 46, the Indonesia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Cambodia, for your presentation. I would like to say congratulations for the Cambodia for the first POR. As I know, Cambodia have progress made regarding the RADD Plus implementation. So I just wonder how to integrating MRV system, the safeguard based on the Cancun principle and the benefit sharing plan or mechanism for the RAD Plus implementation activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. And now the number 44, Saudi Arabia. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I want to start by thanking Cambodia for the excellent presentation. I also want to congratulate Cambodia on submitting first BUR. As you know, among the objectives of the guidelines for preparation of the BUR is to facilitate reporting by non-Annex 1 parties to the extent possible on economic and social consequences of response measures. We are interested to know if you were able to address response measures in the BUR. Were there any difficulty, challenges? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Saudi Arabia. And lastly, I can see number 48, Canada. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as noted by many colleagues, I would like to congratulate Cambodia on the publication of their first BUR. My question is, your BUR makes several references to the inclusion of gender considerations in climate action, including through the Ministry of Women's Affairs Climate Change Action Plan. Can you share further details on this plan, such as priorities or key initiative, and also on how you engage with gender stakeholders in the design and implementation of your mitigation policies and measures?
Okay, thank you. And now can I invite the Cambodia to respond to these questions?
Thank you, excellent chairs, and thank you once again, delegate, for the question. First, I would like to answer the question to the data use, especially the challenge of data use, especially related to support. I would say that our country right now we try to develop annual climate change public expenditures. It is very important in our country. I think maybe we really advance in this area, and of course the reason that we use this exposed data, we think that with our current, with our current situation, this data is very important in the area for our countries, and we use it as a fundamental basis, in order to assume the future trend for our countries. However, to best available data in the countries, we think that it is good, but we do need to have to further improvement in this area. We have some record of the data or support issue, but we still miss some kind of information, and sometimes it is very difficult. It is also our challenge in order to estimate the financial need for our country. So I think maybe more work need to be done by our country, in this area. For the question for MOV, the relationship between MOV and safeguard and the benefit of a sharing plan for REDD+. I would say that recently there's quite impression by our government, especially the interest with the Ministry of Economy and Finance in the area of climate change, and specifically for REDD+. First we mostly, the implementation of our REDD+ at the national level. But in reality, the local people who face the challenge and face the program, face the problem. On this, the Ministry of Economy and Finance and with our Ministry of Environment, we agree that that's very important to do benefit sharing, meaning that how many percent that we need to share to the local people, to get the benefit from the implementation of the project, and on this we develop procedures for benefit sharing, like 30-70 or 50-50. So this is what the important step that we have been done, and it's still under discussion in order to finalize this. Since we have the initiative, but the implementation not that easy. So on this we need to do more. But the experience of the implementation of REDD project, as I said, first they recruit like rangers or local officer from the people in the forest area, and then they try to provide the support to them, in order to avoid encroaching the forest land area. But this methodology is still not so effective. So we try to find other way in order to support the local people, and the way that we are thinking and we are planning right now the benefit sharing, and also mobilize other resources, to support them. Even we try to develop, we call home garden and animal raising, to the local people. We even try to domestic call the wild animal. For example, wild pig, we try to raise, we treat like domestic pig. So I think this is a methodology that we have tried. And besides that, we need to provide them like water accessibilities, infrastructure, and so on and so forth, in order to make sure that they feel they get the benefit from the implementation and cooperation with our project implementation. And for the question of Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry that I could not get you mean the response measure, something?
So number 44, Saudi Arabia. Could you get closer to the mic and speak a little more loudly?
Yes, do I have the floor? Yes, so of course you're welcome. So were you able to address the social and economic consequences of response measures in the BUR, or did you get any chapter or anything relating to response measures in the BUR itself, or not? If not, are there any challenges, difficulties? Thank you. Is this clear, hopefully?
Okay, thank you very much. I think with our BUR, this is still a challenge, frankly speaking, and we need to explore more in order to improve this report. As I said, when we developing BUR, we face a lot of challenges, frankly speaking, starting from the institutional arrangement, resource mobilization, and so on and so forth, But at the end of the day, we could finalize it. We take a lot of time, to implement. To develop this kind of report. But we understand that more gap that need to be fulfilled in the future. For the last question from Canada on gender consideration, gender is very important in any area. And, recently when we develop any project proposal, they said we need to take gender into account, otherwise they will not support us. Under our BUR and beyond that, we also prioritize genders. I would say that in our country, gender mainstreaming into climate change is very increasing and also very outstanding. This is because the opportunity, as I said, first we have opportunity to get support from our partner to implement climate change related project. And on this we encourage the Ministry of Women Affairs to participate. And having seen the benefit and also having seen the importance of implementation of climate change project, gender, they really interest, even they develop their long-term strategy for climate change. I think maybe the first ministry among the 4 line ministry that raised previously to develop long-term climate change strategies. Besides that, they try to balance between mitigation and adaptation. As you may know that gender, what we mean right now, mostly we focus on women. They mostly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. We would say that they should more interest on climate change adaptation. But, with their understanding and with the importance of climate change, even they take mitigation into account. And the reason they said they take into mitigation into account, they said the ladies is always around, and they very important with their participation. For example, if they are the house taker or cooker, they know how to save energies and they know how to save the fuel source, and also fuel food. So this is very important, and I think this concept, even it very minor impact. If compared to other countries, but it's very important that at least we get to this level in order to implement or encourage the implementation of other project. And besides that, right now we still provide the opportunity and we try to mobilize other resources to implement climate change and genders. And we try to link them, with different networks. So I would say that gender and climate change in our country really progress. And since I am representative and not come from the Ministry of Women Affairs, further detail maybe the ministry you can get a more a picture from the Ministry of Women Affairs in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, delegates, for the questions, and thank you, Cambodia, for your responses. I would now like to invite number 24, the Laos People's Democratic Republic, to make a short statement. It will be delivered by Mr. Imalla De Insa Boli, Deputy Director General of the Department of Climate Change, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. Mr. Insa Boli, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Dear Chair, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor. I'm very pleased to make a short statement for this meeting on behalf of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Laos PDR. Firstly, I would like to inform what we have done to address the climate change in our country, as well as in the response to the Paris Agreement sustainable goal that Laos PDR have ratified in 2016. In the past 5 years, we improved the policy framework and institution capacity, among others. We have national green growth strategy to 2030, and decree on the climate change in 2019. to complete and updating the NDC early this year, within this year. We expect to complete and updating national climate change strategy to year 2030 with the vision of 2050, with the aim for low and net zero emission resilient development respectively. We have also implemented the third national communication and biannual update report project, which we are crucial to support us to prepare and submit the document to the FTC Secretariat as a plan. Refer to the BUR, the net emission was about 24,000 CO2 equivalent. And the absolute accounted for the 78% of the total emission in base year in 2014. The emission was lower than those reported in the previous greenhouse gas inventory. This mainly resulted from the increased forest cover in the year. However, through the BUR, we found and learned that there are several barriers and support need to BUR and or BTR. One most important urgent need to increase the capacity on the GHG inventory includes the application for tool and guideline, QA and QC, and to ensure that the compliant with the BUR requirement. Secondly, we need to increase the capacity on the assessment or MRV of climate action to effect. The capacity we need is not only for our ministry, but who is the focal point of the effort, but be also for the relevant sector, local level, and other stakeholders, and a local capacity builder. Lastly, but not least, continuous financial support. We acknowledge your comment and suggestion on BUR through ICA and FSV. We would like to take into account for the future improvement. As we all know, this day and possibility in long run, there would be more challenge to fulfill the climate action in to achieve the ambitious goal during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, it's believed that with a strong cooperation to support network and advanced technology, we will overcome the barrier in challenge. Lastly, I would like to thank again for the opportunity and with you on healthy and cooperation with you again in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Laos People's Democratic Republic. Now, I would like to open the floor for questions from parties. I will collect a number of questions from parties before inviting the delegate from Laos People's Democratic Republic to respond. Now, floor is open. I can see number 36, Denmark. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I would also like to congratulate the Laos PDR for its first biennial update report. And thank you for your presentation and your statement today. In the presentation of the Laos PDR and also in your biennial update report, information on a wide range of mitigation actions is provided. In the area of solar power, your target is to reach a total capacity of 48 megawatt. And we can see from your report that in the period from 2015 to 17, 9 solar power plants have been built with a total capacity of 32 megawatt, or 2/3 of your target. Has this trend continued after 2017? So you have now reached your solar power target. And could you elaborate a bit on the main reasons for your successful implementation, and have any economic incentives been provided, for example? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now number 42, UK, you have the floor.
Hello. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Laos PDR for the presentation, and we congratulate you on the first BUR. The presentation highlighted that one of the main challenges has been ensuring coordination across different institutions and relevant ministries. How will you address this in future reporting, and what have been the key lessons learned? Thank you very much.
Thank you, EU. Thank you, UK. And now number 11, EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Let me first congratulate Laos PDR for its first biennial update report. We would like to thank you for providing answers to the written questions posed by the European Union. We would also like to thank you for your very interesting presentation and your remarks today. The EU has one question on lessons learned from the international consultation and analysis process. In its presentation, Laos PDR discussed the lessons learned from the ICA process and identified various needs for improvements. These needs are related to providing responses to the team of technical experts, related to institutional arrangements, capacity building. Our question is, which of these needs, in your view, should be addressed with the highest priority in order to help Laos PDR in improving its next reporting cycle? Thank you.
Thank you, EU. And now number 12, Luxembourg, you have the floor.
Thank you, and also congratulations to the Lao People's Democratic Republic for the first biennial report from our side. The People's Democratic Republic is also one of the privileged partner countries in our cooperation in Luxembourg, so we are supporting several projects in this country. And I will turn to the constraint gaps and issues that you have identified during a validation workshop and during stakeholder consultation meetings. We would be very interested to know have a bit more information about these meetings, and also who are the participants, who were the different stakeholders that were invited in these meetings to identify these issues, constraints, gaps, and so on that you have reported in your report and also in your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luxembourg. And now number 64, Japan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And also congratulations to Laos PDR for their submission of first BUR. And also thank you very much for the presentation and your statement today. We'd like to ask about the MRV system. So on page 29 of the BUR1, it is indicated that Laos PDR will establish a harmonized and inclusive MRV system for GHG inventories, mitigation actions and effects, and support in the near future. Could you share the progress on the establishment of this MRV system, and also if there's any challenges that you are facing? Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. And now number 51, Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to take the floor. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Laos for submission of the first BUR, and also would like to express our appreciation to your informative presentation, as well as your statement today. I have one question regarding national inventory and mitigation action. We have noted that the largest emission source in Laos is Alpha sector in 2014, and there have been efforts for mitigation in this sector, particularly in forestry, as presented in your presentation. Would you please elaborate on some of the challenges in implementing these measures and how you addressed or will address such challenges? Thank you.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. And lastly, number 55, China. You have the floor.
Thank you, SBI Chair. And also China would like to join other colleagues to congratulate Laos for completing their first BUR as well as the ICA cycle. We have a very specific question that we are asking our colleagues from Laos that do you encounter any specific constraints and barriers when you report the financial, technical, and capacity building needs and received? Because as China, we face these constraints because they are very scattered informations. And we think that's quite key for developing countries. So we'd like to seek some clarification from Lao colleagues on this information. Thank you.
Thank you, China. The answers to the questions will be provided by Mr. Punyu Kamfilavan, Deputy Director of the Division of Greenhouse Gas Inventory and Mitigation, Department of Climate Change. Mr. Kamfilavan will participate remotely through the COP26 platform. Mr. Kamfilavan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good evening from my home country. Thank you very much for all the questions. Start from Denmark. You mentioned about the solar power target, and yes, actually for the solar, our government set the solar target at the one priority to integrate to the solar kit at the national level. Right now, frankly speaking, is the target is not achieved yet. But however, we also have the plan to develop more solar source, and also not only the solar power target our government would like to promote, but also including the wind power as well. That our government and private sector just signed the MOU to develop the wind power. The main target is also export to neighboring country, particularly to the Vietnam. And the main benefit in terms of the economic from this policy, just mainly is will support to the national power plan of the government, and also the benefits economically will also directly to local community who will get from this project as well. And then the question from UK, the main challenges for the main challenges for coordination among our how to say, to develop some particularly for develop the BUR. Just even though to implementing not only BUR project, every project we also establish, we call the National Climate Change Working Group to be the member and also the task force member. However, some of the member is not fully understand for the climate change issue. So the main challenges is they cannot provide some the critical how to say critical view or critical comment to the result of analysis. And the most of the challenges of for the coordination is mean we we don't have enough particularly budget to organize the regular meeting for discussion. This is the main challenges. But and in the future we will how to address these challenges under CBIT project. We also there is one component to identify or analyze how to improve the coordination among the concerning ministry. And a question from EU, you asked about the lesson learned from the ICA process. The ICA process, this is the first time for Laos because with the first BGR, we learned a lot the lesson from ICA process, particularly how to improve the coordination among the concerning ministry, and also for the main challenge for us, particularly for activity data collection and sharing. So we need in the future we need to focus on this area or this subject. And the question from Luxembourg, you mean the for during the validation workshop is to for the BUR process. Just as I mentioned, particularly for BUR project, we also established the working group, climate change working group, and the task force. So mainly the participant is we form this working group to participate for the validation workshop. And the question from Japan for the MRV system, this one is also now under a CBRID project. There is one component to establish or improve the MRV system in Laos. Since, frankly speaking, from the last inventory and mitigation report, we don't have the concrete MRV system. So under CBRID project, we now develop the MRV system. Particularly, we focus on the national GG inventory and mitigation reporting mechanism. So we hope at the early next year we will get some concrete progress. And I would like to inform you that not only working with the local consultant, but it also support from international consultant, particularly from Japan. So in the future, I think I can share with you for the some progress. And from the Korea question regarding for the I think it's the inventory for food sector, right? The main challenges maybe it's similar to another sector for the food sector is the access to the activity data. Since I mentioned before, we don't right now we don't have the national inventory database system. So under this the CBID project, we try. There is one component to develop the national GG inventory and database system. So in the future, we hope that these challenges will be addressed by this project, and including the mitigation mitigation action as well. So mainly will focus on the red part activity, but as I mentioned, reporting answer to some question above, the system, but for example, MRV system is not in place yet. So we need to, the main challenge for us is still on this issue. The last one is from China. You mean regarding for the climate finance tracking and also including technologies receive reporting, right? Yes, this is the first time that we are also preparing particularly to include in the BTR. So also this issue also in one of the component under CBID project as well. Now we working with the Ministry of Planning and Investment, because they have the existing database system, particularly for ODA database system. So we try to integrate this climate finance tracking system into their system. So right now we also have the support from the UNEP partnership to support others international consultants. So this one is still on the identify the priorities subject to be included in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates, for the questions, and thank you, the Lao People's Democratic Republic, for your responses. I would now like to invite India to make a short statement. It will be delivered by J.R. Bhatt, Advisor of the Ministry of Environment, the Forest and Climate Change. Number 16, Dr. Bhatt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We welcome this opportunity to interact with the parties in this valuable stage of the FSV process for India's third BUR. India holds multilateral process in high esteem. India takes its responsibilities and commitments under the multilateral process with utmost seriousness. It is in this perspective that we have prepared an exhaustive BUR. We also note that our preparation of the BUR proceeded on track through the pandemic, despite the challenges that this entailed. Chair, with having more than 17% of the global population, India's historical cumulative emissions and current annual emissions remain very low. India's per capita GHG emissions, including LULUCF, in 2016, based on the national inventory that we have reported in Chapter 2 of the BUR 3, were 1.96 ton CO2 equivalent, which is less than 1/3 of the world's per capita GHG emissions for the same year. We emphasize that India is also particularly vulnerable to climate change, a point which needs to be noted. To follow a sustainable path to development, India has taken several mitigation actions. Chair, today there is no sector that has been left untouched while planning and implementing climate mitigation actions. They span across the entire economy and society. With this backdrop, India has progressively continued decoupling of economic growth from greenhouse gas emissions. India's emission intensity of GDP has reduced by 24% between 2005 and 2016. In the last 7 years, we are very proud to inform that India's installed solar capacity has increased 17 times and stands at about 46 gigawatt as on date. Chair, India has also proactively contributed to multilateral efforts to combat climate change. Apart from resolutely addressing climate change domestically for the world, we have created and continue to nurture International Solar Alliance and Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. We are also taking the lead with Sweden in the innovations for hard-to-abate sectors with a view to promoting low-carbon transition. We are consciously pursuing our national hydrogen mission. So, Chair, when India speaks on climate change, it does so from a position of strength and responsibility. Chair, India, as you know, and through you to all the participants, we are a mega diverse country supporting 4 biodiversity hotspots of the world, and our forests are providing all the 4 ecosystem services. India's 15% of total CO2 emissions in 2016, as reported in our BUR3, were removed from the atmosphere by the LULUCF sector. Between 2015 and 2019, the forest and tree cover increased by 13,031 square kilometers, and also the mangrove cover increased by 235 square kilometers. Not only that, the forests and mangroves are on ascendance, but the population of Asiatic lion, elephants, rhinos, all have increased many folds in the last 5 to 6 years. India, Chair, has been riding the tier ladder in inventory estimation, and around 2/3 of our emissions are estimated using the higher tiers, and also deploy 2006 guidelines. Our MRV system is evolving. The operational design of MRV in India is implemented in a decentralized manner. Efforts are distributed at multiple levels of governance. And this is, we feel, an appropriate strategy for a vast and diverse nation like ours. Many schemes are transparently tracked through online web portals and digital dashboards. Chair, capacity building needs remain a great challenge. India looks forward to climate finance and technology transfer for the expansion in scale and scope of its mitigation and adaptation activities. Lastly, Chair, I need to put on record that during the ICA process, we had received 58 questions, and those were all replied. During the last leg of the FSV process in the last 2 weeks, we had received 24 questions from 7 countries, namely USA, Canada, UK, Japan, New Zealand, EU, and Switzerland. And these all have been also duly replied. Thank you one and all for your patient hearing, and we welcome questions on the third BUR that India has proudly submitted. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, India. Now, I'd like to open the floor for questions from parties. I will collect a number of questions from parties before inviting the delegate from India to respond. The floor is open. Now I can see number 55, China. You have the floor.
Thank you, and also thank our colleagues from India, and congratulations for your completion cycle of the third BUR as well as ICA. And also we really appreciate efforts made by India in regards to the solar power deployment as well as the contribution for the carbon sinks. As we know that like India and China's carbon sinks really contribute a lot to the global efforts. And also we'd like to congratulate India's announcement of the new carbon neutral goal or target in Glasgow this time. I would like to know that what exactly like some constraints and barriers towards your target, not only the NDC, but might to the carbon neutral target you have proposed. Also, we heard that you have received a lot of questions during the technical analysis. And China also like to hear your specific capacity building needs to the inventory compilation. Thank you.
Thank you, China. And number 10, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And EU would also like to congratulate India for its third VUR and also for answering all our questions. There were also many, and for your presentation and statement today. We have one question regarding your forest land. Forest land constitutes an important carbon sink in India, and according to India's third biennial update report, the total area of forest land increased slowly but steadily in recent years. Could you briefly elaborate on the actions which India is taking, not only to preserve, but also to increase forest land, and also how maybe you can also say how your climate policies protect also, your rich biodiversity, as you were mentioning this before. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. And number 21, Czech Republic, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, we would like to thank India for a great presentation and also congratulate for the third biennial update report. And we would like to ask a question about greenhouse gases from the waste sector. According to India's third biennial update report, greenhouse gas emissions from the waste sector showed strong increase between 1994 and 2014, but a decreased years following 2014. Could you briefly elaborate on the causes for this recent decrease in emissions? Thank you.
Thank Czech Republic. And number 12, the Luxembourg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and also congratulations to India for the third biennial update report. Looking at one of your slides, and I see that there is this program that you called Unat Jyotiba Affordable Let's, Ujala, and that led to an impressive emission reduction of 180 million tons of CO2 between 2014-15 and 2020. It's even more than the solar panel program that China mentioned, where you mentioned only 60 million, or only into brackets, 60 million tons of CO2. Actually, concerning this program, what was it exactly, and what are the lessons learned that could be eventually replicable by other parties? Because this is really an impressive result. So we would like to hear a bit more about this and this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Luxembourg. And number 57, Switzerland. And after the Switzerland's questions, can I ask India to respond to these questions in the first place? And then I'd like to give the floor to Switzerland, number 57.
Switzerland would also like to thank India for its informative presentation. We are impressed by the progress India has made in increasing the share of renewable in its energy mix. Our question relates to the future role of non-renewable energy sources. As clearly stated in India's third biennial update, coal will continue to be an integral part of India's energy mix and is seen as essential to India's development needs and energy security. Consequently, the report mentions further investment in additional coal-based power generation capacity. However, as we have learned from recent IPCC reports, moving to a fossil-free energy system is one of the prerequisites to ultimately halting climate change. What is India's position on developing and implementing a low-emission development strategy that would reduce its dependence on coal? Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. And can I invite India to respond to these questions in the first place?
Thank you, Chair. We, as a delegation, were noting all the questions very carefully, and we will come to each and every question. So the first question is from our from the distinguished delegate from China about the capacity building needs and the barriers there too. And we are to say that the most important capacity building needs have been duly enumerated in the BUR, and this is in page 381, section 5.5. So details are there. The overall challenge, of course, is to balance the developmental aspects and the long-term low-carbon pathway aspects. That is the main challenge for a vast developing country like ours. And domestically and internationally, we have taken resolute actions which are a testimony of what India has done at home and globally, as I said, because this is a global collective action problem. And the distinguished delegate from China also touched upon the forestry issue, that yes, the forests are on ascendance in India, and was also adding that the forests in China are also in a healthy condition. So that was in terms of what our distinguished delegate from China asked. In terms of the question from EU, if I captured the question correctly, this is about, the percentage of land that we have under forests, and this gives me also an opportunity to say that with just 2.4% of land area of the world, and with more than 30,000 Asian elephants, more than 70% of global tiger population, more than 18% of cattle population, and with more than 1 lakh animals species identified in our jungles, and more than 47,000 species of plant species identified in our forests. We have a national goal of keeping the forests at 33% of this 2.4% land area that we have. And our jungles, the area is, as of now, the forest and tree cover is 24.56%, and it is on ascendance. It is on ascendance is a matter of both pride, and we have a number of schemes, both for promoting the forests cover, forest and tree cover, like National Afforestation Program. We have the Campa Act, we have the Green India Mission, we have elaborate programs under highways, railways, and also we have a dedicated eco task force of retired defense people who are undertaking this endeavor with deft and zeal in very, very difficult to afforest areas. I must also add here that in terms of huge emissions from forest fires in many regions of the world, which we have been hearing in the media these days, the emissions from forest fires in India contribute a mere 1 to 1.5% of all global emissions from wildfires. And that our forests are teeming with wildlife. We also revere our forests, we also worship, and they are a source of livelihoods to millions of people in our country. Regarding the question of Czech Republic, in terms of waste sector, which the emissions are around 3%, I would hand over to my colleague, Professor Amit Garg, who is the person who is championing the cause of inventory for the country. Over to Dr. Amit Garg.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. Since 2014, we started one domestic program called Swachh Bharat Mission, Clean India Mission. And then also we started a Smart City Mission. So in that, the methane emissions and also lot of landfill, a lot of waste going to landfills has enhanced quite a lot. And this waste emission have gone down because of maybe after 2014, because we are also started methane recovery from our landfills at various places, and also energy from waste program has also started. So I think the progress is coming and being felt over the years. So you may find that our emissions from waste sector has gone down. All over, I think if you see the overall emissions, waste contributes less than 3% of Indian GHG emissions. So, and a lot of policies have been taken, are being taken for reducing emissions from waste by better management of waste. And there are 2016 waste management rules have been implemented in India. So this also reduces the emissions because we are able to manage it better, and emissions also go down. Thank you very much. Next.
I think, Professor Amit, you can also continue with the question of Luxembourg. Distinguished delegate from Luxembourg had said about the Ujjwala program?
Ujala.
Or Ujala? Ujala, I think maybe the distinguished delegate from Luxembourg can just...
Yeah. For reducing the 160 million ton emissions, what was indicated by our colleague from Luxembourg, I think a very important program was initiated in India to replace about 770 million LED lamps, that is incandescent lamps by LED lamps, 770 million. More than half have been done, 367 million have been done as on date. There is a reduction because LED lamps reduce quite a lot of power, and I think this has been one of the very central energy efficiency maybe action taken by India, and we continue to cover the remaining 400 million LEDs, that is replacement by LEDs, and this will happen. And we have had given, because India is a federal structure, we have states and union territories and centers, so we have given these contracts with utilities to allow people to pay through a regular EMI through their electricity bill. So pay while you use program has been used to avoid any capital upfront capex investment, which may become a hurdle for small households. So I think this has become a very big success story for India, and we are sure that such initiatives will be happy and glad to, maybe if any other country wants to have maybe learning from us, or maybe how to do it better, because here energy efficiency enhancement and economies of scale both have been taken use, and here we have involved a lot of private sector, the guys who are making LED lamps, the utilities that are installing these lamps, and the general public which are at household level. So this has been a major success factor which is contributing to 160 million ton of GHG emission reduction. Thank you very much.
Chair, the last question in this series of questions has been from the distinguished delegate from Switzerland, and this pertained basically to India's usage of coal. I would at the outset like to say that coal is our natural endowment. We burn it very responsibly, and like many other countries have gas and oil, this is our natural endowment. And I would like my colleague, Professor T. Jayaraman, who is sitting next to me, to elaborate on this. Mic number 15.
Thank you, Dr. Butt. It's a pleasure to respond to the question from our distinguished colleague from Switzerland. It's obviously a matter of concern to various people, but we would like to point out, first of all, that to add to what my colleague said, that India is not well endowed in both oil and natural gas, and therefore coal remains the mainstay. It is not only in the energy sector, but it's also in the electricity production, but it's also as a resource required for industrial production, energy in various processes, etc. So coal remains important. But India is well aware that the use of coal must be responsible. India has more than 200 thermal plants, which are under review, which are old and inefficient technology, which will be progressively retired. A considerable amount of this is already taking place or in process. They will be replaced by supercritical, ultra-supercritical, or advanced ultra-supercritical plants. India aims to also move towards intensively towards clean coal, and this involves coal washing, electrostatic precipitators, flue gas FGDs for air quality improvement. India has also heavily invested in R&D in the IGCC process. So I think India is very conscious of the need to use its endowment of fossil fuel responsibly. However, we would also point out, as we have done in the BUR in some detail, and as India has articulated on various occasions, India believes that all parties have a right to an equitable share of the global carbon budget, keeping in mind, of course, that the considerable part of the carbon budget has been consumed by the historical cumulative emissions of developed country parties. However, both with regard to the remaining carbon budget and the monetization of the carbon budget of the earlier period, I think India believes that this is essential to us as a developing country, and our policies are articulated in this context. We would also like to point out that a great deal of coal phase out that is being discussed across the world is actually accompanied by continued and persistent investment in oil and gas. And where there are accounts of coal phase out, we would like to point out that coal phase out is not uniformly announced all over the world by developed country parties, but even where they are announced, they are not accompanied by phase-out dates for other fossil fuels. So in this context, India's clear statement, upfront and transparent, and laying out the terms and conditions under which we are using this is, I think, a progressive and forward step in enhancing the transparency that we all seek. Finally, with regard to what the IPCC scenarios or other scenarios which are referred to, we regret to note that these scenarios are framed in context that pays scant sort of attention to questions of equity. The vast majority of these models, we have examined them in some detail, especially when they are downscaled to countries like India, China, and other individual countries, that these are all forms of mitigation, distributing the mitigation burden, which is known in the academic literature as contract and converge. To put it simply, this means that without particular reference to equity, all parties are required to cut emissions at the same time and converge to the same level of emissions at approximately, at approximately converging dates. So we do not regard these scenarios as equitable. So equitable scenarios require more work. We have some preliminary results, but this is not the forum, I think, to engage in that discussion. But we would be happy to engage in such discussions bilaterally. But we do point out that we have to be guided towards the eventual progression to net zero for the world, which we believe, of course, follows naturally from the fact that the world has a global carbon budget to which it must adhere for keeping to the Paris temperature limits. Thank you.
Thank you, India, for the sincere responses to the questions from parties. And now we will have a second round of questions. Now I can see number 44, Saudi Arabia. You have the floor.
Yes, hello. First, I would like to congratulate India on the submission of the third BUR. Thank you again for the presentation. Thank you for the elaborations and the answers. I would also like to go back to my earlier questions. As you know, and as mentioned earlier, among the objectives of the guidelines for preparation of the BUR is to facilitate reporting by non-Annex 1 parties to the extent possible on economic and social consequences of response measures, such as assessing the positive and negative social and economic impacts of the implementation of response measures to mitigate climate change. If not, was this due to challenges? Again, I would like to thank you very much and congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. And number 42, the UK. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to India for its presentation and for answering our questions, and for your congratulations on the third BUR. The BUR notes the launch of the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure in 2019. Could you provide more information on this initiative? Have there been any lessons learned for other countries that are looking to make their infrastructure more secure in the future? Thank you very much.
Thank you, UK. And number 46, Indonesia. You have the floor. IS number 46, Indonesia. You have the floor.
Sorry.
Wait the moment. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, India. We would like to convey congratulations for India for the third per submission. So we just wondering what kind of actions in forestry sector regarding that the forest cover and trees cover could be increased by 1.3 million hectare in the 2015 until 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. And now lastly, I'd like to give the floor to number 51, Republic of Korea. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to join our colleagues in congratulating India for submission of its third BUR, and also thank you for the presentation as well as your statement today. I'll be very brief. You mentioned that, which is also in your presentation, a 24% reduction in emission intensity of India's GDP was achieved between 2005 and 2016. Would you please elaborate on main contributor in your strategy or scheme that played a significant role in such achievement, if possible, specifically in the energy sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Korea. And can I invite India to respond to these questions? India, you have the floor. Number
Thank
16.
you, Chair. We have noted the questions from Saudi Arabia, UK, Indonesia, and lastly Korea. And I would, regarding the question from the distinguished delegate from Saudi Arabia, largely regarding just transition, I would request Professor Tejal Kanitkar of our team to respond. Mic number 17, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to this question by the distinguished delegate from Saudi Arabia. We have significant challenges in implementing mitigation measures. For example, we have studies that show the impact on energy tariffs because of renewable energy installations that have taken place before technology maturation and reductions in costs, and these implications for energy tariffs are quite significant. We have, because of the higher costs currently, before the cost reductions in the more recent years, we have in place many policies that incentivize the inclusion of renewable energy, the higher uptake of renewable energy in the electricity sector. For example, we have renewable purchase obligations for our distribution utilities, which means that they have to offtake a certain percentage of their energy from renewable energy sources. And over and above that, we have no curtailment policies for our renewable energy plants, which means that they enjoy what is known as a must-run status. So all energy that is produced by the plants, irrespective of its costs, has to be absorbed. This introduces challenges for grid balancing as well, which adds further costs to the entire system. So as we go forward with our increasing renewable energy in our total energy mix, I think we will have challenges of energy storage, which we have already started looking at in terms of various technologies there. But we would like to underline that the cost implications of this transition is very high, of increasing energy usage, because we would also like to highlight that as a developing country, for India, it isn't a transition. Our energy needs are growing. Our per capita energy use is a very small fraction of the average per capita use of the world. And as we grow, so our challenges are multifold, because we have to now enhance our renewable energy offtake as our energy requirements grow. So there is a significant finance requirement here, and we would like to underline that fact. On another aspect, there are additional challenges of ensuring that the labor impacts of changing our energy mix are taken care of. Because, for example, in India, a lot of our fossil fuel resources that currently play a role in the energy sector are in the eastern part of the country, whereas the renewable energy resources are in the western and southern parts of the country. And so this becomes an additional challenge for us. And This is, of course, an illustration of just some of the challenges in a large, I think, a very larger list. But I hope that we've been able to answer at least partially the question. Thank you very much.
Chair, the question from the distinguished delegate from UK, our host. I would request my colleague, Mr. Ajay Raghav, to give a reply. And this is a very unique initiative, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and we want more and more countries to join. With these words, Dr. Ajay, can you?
I would like to thank UK for asking this question on CDRI. This is one of the initiatives which India has taken for climate action. The current co-chair is UK. There are at the moment 26 member countries of this coalition and 7 organizations which are part of this. One of the major objectives is to mainstream the climate adaptation and resilience in the planning process. So the number of projects which have been taken includes in the sector of power, the airports, and also initiatives in terms of risk and resilience assessments and insurance. CDRI is a new coalition, but it has done a lot of work in last 2 years, and we also appeal that as the membership grow, the scope and scale of this coalition and the work will increase in future. The countries are increasingly having impacts due to the climate change. So it is need to have integrated resilience and adaptation in the planning process, which is the need of the hour. So the CDRI is in that direction working through international partnerships. Thank you.
Chair, we now come to the question raised by the distinguished delegate from Indonesia regarding the lessons learned in terms of the forestry sector success story that we have. And I think one singularly most important thing in the forestry sector that was responsible for the increase of the forest cover, as I said, by more than 13,000 square kilometers, and also the mangrove cover, can be attributed to people's participation. In India, we have 100,000 and more joint forest management committees. So it is with the involvement of local people and through these joint forest management committees that we are not only able to hold on to our forests, but also increase them, enhance them. This is the main sum and substance of a very, very, very important people's participation mode that we engage in, that we are able to hold on to this. And the other thing is also our age-old traditions, which are deep in our Indian psyche, about reverence to nature. In fact, Chair, the the logo of my ministry, which is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, was the logo of the COP to CBD, which was held in Hyderabad in 2012, which said that nature protects if she is protected. Prakruti rakshati rakshita. And also the, as I said, the reverence for all forms of life, empathy and reverence for all forms of life. And that is how those numbers that I was counting, more than 30,000 Asian elephants, more than 70% of tigers in the wild, and the largest cattle population, 17% of human population. All this live together peacefully because our age-old tradition is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Earth is but one family. This is our tradition, and Indian tradition has always preferred frugality over profligacy and reverence to nature, empathy for all forms of life. Chair, with these words, the last question was from distinguished delegate from Korea. I would, this would be replied in two parts. The overall context would be set by Professor Amit Garg, and we have the Director General of Bureau of Energy Efficiency who does this work. So he would take the floor thereafter and very quickly. And Chair, it's not only, before I close on the question from Indonesia, it's not just the promotional measures which I had counted in terms of Green India Mission, National Afforestation Program, Nagar Van Yojana, Vandhan Yojana, and there are number of schemes and programs, and it is a people's movement. Also, there is a very strong legislation. Our Forest Conservation Act of 1980, as amended from time to time, is mandating that any time that we divert a small piece of land also for any other purpose, we undertake more than 3 times or more than 5 times sometimes the replantation efforts. So we are very mindful of the entire process by which we hold on to our forests, we hold on to our tree cover, and we hold on to our biodiversity. And hence, we speak from a position of strength on these issues. Now, I would hand over to my colleague, Professor Amit Garg, for the question from Korea.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very interesting question, I must say. And this is also the central point of our mitigation efforts, energy sector. So we have multiple policies. Our BUR3 identifies about 114 policies spread over various tables, where we talk about the mitigation actions we have taken, and out of that, more than 60% are related to energy. And let me give an example. Now, this 114 is just the meta-level policies. Behind every policy, there will be other sub-policies, like solar is given as one policy, but there will be about 20-25 policy under solar given by various states and for various type of things. So this is at a very broad level. India has about more than 450 policies, and out of that, about 300 policies that are for energy efficiency enhancement, energy improvement. And I think this also requires the Perform Achieve Trade Scheme, the LED replacement scheme, the structure change in economy, the renewable energy, the electrification. I think I can go on counting, but I think it is better that I leave it to my colleague who is heading our Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Mr. Bakre, to please explain in more detail. Speaker number 14, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief, and thank you, Dr. Garg and Dr. Bhatt. As rightly mentioned, India's GHG emissions from energy sector is almost 76%. So in that case, the energy efficiency and the demand side management have been the major policies and programs where the mitigation and reduction has been achieved. To start with, from 2006, we have the appliances sector. We have covered star labeling for 28 appliances, which are some of the major appliances, refrigerator, air conditioners, and currently we are achieving almost 55 million tons of CO2 reduction every year from this ambitious program. This program itself led to the Ujala program, which was highlighted by our distinguished colleague from Luxembourg. And LED program also basically catered to additionally 160 million tons of CO2. That was through demand aggregation and infusion of new technology in the market transformation. On the industrial sector, as almost half of our energy goes to the industrial sector in India, so we have picked up top 1,000 large industries who are the biggest the energy consumer, and that accounts to almost half of the industrial energy consumption. So more than 300 million ton of CO2 covered in one single program, and we call it as perform, achieve and trade. We set the target as per our NDCs, and the industries who exceed the target, they are given credits in form of energy credits, and who are falling short, they are supposed to purchase those credits. So we are able to now save almost 90 million ton of CO2 per year from this ambitious industrial energy program. And finally, as we already highlighted, the power sector, the installation of renewable energy and the through solar and wind has also led to reduction in GHG emission from the power sector. The power sector plants themselves have improved their efficiency, and the inefficient plants have been phased out. More than 17,000 megawatt of capacity has been phased out because they were inefficient and they were old, and they have been replaced by the ultra supercritical, which are almost 10% higher than the conventional subcritical plants. So the power sector has also reduced the emissions in a big way in the last decade or so. Thank you so much.
Chair, if there are any other questions, we would be happy to interact.
No, I can see no questions from the parties. So thank you, delegates, for the questions, and thank you, India, for your responses. Now I'd like to make closing remarks. Delegates and colleagues, today we have heard presentations by 3 parties. I'd like to extend my thanks and congratulate you all for actively engaging in these very fruitful and positive discussions. This type of interaction embodies the true spirit and principles of the ICA, the process. I'm sure we have all benefited from today's meeting. I would now like to suspend the session and resume with a joint FSV and MA closing, which will take place today at the end of the MA session at approximately 17:25 in this room. We wish you a pleasant rest of your day and look forward to seeing you at the joint closing of the MA and FSV sessions. This session is adjourned. Thank you so much indeed.